To become really good at anything, you have to get the right feedback. And to get the right feedback, you got to learn to ask the right question to get the right feedback. So, I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about as you're learning programming or just expanding your knowledge about programming, how you can ask better questions to get better feedback from whoever your mentor is. It could be me, it could be anybody. I'll talk about my preferences here because I might be one of the key resources for you. But think about this anytime you're going to go seek feedback, even as you go into professional world. Um, Especially when we're new, we tend to ask impossible questions to answer. It's not that we do so intentionally. We forget, and this happens for teachers as well. We forget that other people aren't in our heads. They can't see what we see. So we ask questions like, "Hey, Dr. Lowe, I'm working on some problem, and I'm getting some errors, even though I did everything you said to do." Well, I can't read your mind. I wasn't there when you did the work. I don't see your work when you ask that question. So, how do I know what you did wrong? I mean, sometimes professors magically pull out what you probably did wrong because everybody makes common mistakes, but it's not probable. It's not the easiest question to answer, and maybe you get lucky and maybe not. Sometimes it's even less clear than that by saying I just don't understand some problem. um, and that's fair. It's a good place that you could be, but understand that when people give you a problem, whether that's a professor or a teacher giving you an assignment, or whether that's people in the real world asking you to write code for them, they give you the best information they have when they wrote it down. You're not always going to understand that. And so, one of the skills we need to develop is asking the right question. Most importantly, in the right medium to go and get answers. So don't send a quick note in chat saying, I don't understand the problem. It's not, it's not enough information to get started with. And at best, what you're going to get is a response saying, okay, well, what don't you understand? Or maybe a rehashing of what they already explained to you. So it's not very useful. And even more difficult is something like I'm not even sure where to get started. Like I don't know if I understand the problem, I don't understand the code, I don't understand anything. And so these are all legitimate feelings. They're all legitimate questions. But what they are at best is a conversation starter. And for me, I typically have a lot of students. I typically have a lot of things I'm going on, and I try to be highly available. But sometimes you send this question at 2 in the morning, and I won't see it until the next morning, and you probably won't be sitting there. So if you send me a question like I don't understand the problem, I don't know what to do, I think I follow the steps, what's going to happen is you're going to respond from me like, well, hey, give me more details. And then, some hours later, you'll come back and give me more details, and then that might be the point where I can start giving you more information. But if you give those details up front, we can get so much faster down the road, so much quicker. But it's kind of worse as we go down the path because sometimes you run into a situation where my code's broken and I don't know what to do. The thing is, when you're new, you don't even know what's broken often. And you might resonate with this. Like, I don't know, did I write the bad code? Am I doing the thing wrong? Is the tool wrong? Is everything wrong? It's hard to, see things clearly because you don't know, your eyes aren't trained yet to know what's important. What are the really important features? What are just, random crap the computer's printing? So, learning to ask better questions will also help you teach yourself what is important and what you see as important. And even if you're wrong, it allows the professor or your mentor to give you feedback of like, oh, I see what you're looking at. That's not important in this case, or that is important in this case. So you might ask a more detailed question. You might be better. You might be not just saying, I don't know what to do. You might be saying like, well, here's my code. And can you tell me what's wrong with it? This is a literal question I get all the time. And what often happens is the student will attach a couple lines of code or even a whole function, but they're coding a whole class or a lot more code. And so what that means is you think you know where the problem is, and it might not be there. It might just be where the error is showing up, but that might not be the nature of the problem. And then it actually shows a lot of confidence in your mentor to say like I can look at 2 or 3 lines of code and know exactly what's going on. And again, sometimes we can because students make common mistakes and we see them and we can guess quickly, but most of the time not. Most of the time, my brain is not a computer. I don't compile or run code automatically, and I have the same human fallacies that you do. Sometimes I overlook the error when I first look at it, and I need to see more. So if you're going to share code, share all of your code, but be clear about what the error you're seeing as well. So, this is a common one I see is, hey, I ran it locally, it's fine, and then when I submit it, it doesn't work. Well, there's a lot going on there because even if you share your code, you submit your code, I don't know how your local setup. I don't know what you were testing necessarily. And sometimes it's, especially in my class, you're running the same test in both places, but maybe your test isn't set up properly, or maybe you didn't run all the tests, or maybe you didn't realize the mistake you were having. So it's important sometimes to include some screenshots of what you're saying, especially if you don't know what to make of it. You might take the screenshot of the wrong thing, but at least show me what you're seeing and show me what you think is important. And then I can help, refocus on the things if you're looking at the wrong stuff, or if you're looking at the right stuff, I can show you, what specifically you're looking out. Um, Really common question is something like this. Just literally copy it out. Can you please help me on how to pass the test case? This fundamentally is the motivation that you think you're working for right now. Is if I pass the test case, then I get points for this, and it shows that I learned something. And my concern with this line of thinking that this is a really great, honest, fair question, is it misses the point of what you actually are learning. You're not learning to make this code work. You think you are because you think that's the goal, that's what you're graded on. But really, what you're learning is the process of making that code work. You making the mistakes along the way is really the most important thing. Programmers don't solve problems quickly. We solve part of a problem quickly, and then we spend the rest of our time fixing all the mistakes we made as we solve that part of the problem quickly. It's called debugging. That's where we spend most of our time. Is we fix our own errors we put into the code. And so, what you in especially early on really need to be learning more than anything else is what is your process for fixing bugs. And this, I love this little picture. It's free picture from clip art here. And it shows that, hey, sometimes we're looking at a symptom that is way removed from the cause of the bug. We might have wrote code that a bug happened an hour ago, a day ago, a week ago. Sometimes the code happened because somebody else did something wrong. I made a mistake in my test case. And so if we focus on fixing the code, and I focus on fixing the code, I take you out of the process. I can fix your code in 15, 20 minutes most of the time. Heck, I don't even need to fix your code. I can throw your code out and grab my solution that I've already written for it. What's interesting to me is not the bugs in your code, but if you will, the bugs in your head. What are you not seeing appropriately? I want to help you train your eyes and your hands to respond better to these mistakes as they occur. Eventually, you might even not make them to begin with, but that's not even important at this point. You're going to make mistakes. I make them all the time. But how do we recognize what the mistake is? How do we see the assumptions, see past our assumptions of what we think is going on, and see what's really going on? That's what debugging is all about. So let's talk about better questions you can ask. Both it to set your mind. That question of, it runs fine locally. Why doesn't it run on the test environment? Why don't I get credit for it? That's something that professional software developers deal with all the time. It runs fine on my machine. I released it to production. I'm not sure why it doesn't work. Not my fault. It ran fine on my machine. Well, there's a lot of assumptions in your machine. There's a lot of simplification. There's some real things that could be going wrong, and rarely is it a problem that isn't need to be fixed in code. So here's an example of a question. I'm working on XXX, and when I run my code, I get error Y. And when it runs online NNN. So what I've just done is I've established in my question, this is what I'm working on, and this is the error I'm seeing, and this is where I'm seeing the error. If you know it, if you don't, that's a different issue. But if you know all that stuff, you can figure this out. Even better, I've added print statements to show me ZZZ, some data about the problem. And I'm not sure about, some question you might have. I believe the answer should be this thing. So what am I missing here? So what's great about this question is I've really given some context. It's not just I don't know what I'm saying. It shows me where you're thinking in the process. It shows me I'm looking for the bug in this part of the code. And it might not be there, but at least I know what you're seeing. And I might be able to redirect you to what you're missing. Because I want to give you feedback that helps you see the problem, not to prove I can spot the problem. The best feedback I can give you is just going to be nudge you, nudge you, nudge you until you have that aha moment. You're like, ah. And that's where learning happens, when you see past what's going wrong. I want to make you go through this frustrating slog that is coding sometimes, because you're going to need to do that on your own many, many times when I'm not around, not available. I mean, if you want to have me be your professional consultant the rest of your life, well, we can figure out a financial agreement to make that happen. But I'd prefer you make your money and I make mine, on our own. So sometimes you don't know that much. Sometimes that's not a place where you are. That's okay. If you don't know that much detail, if you're still confused, you can still ask a good question. So I'm starting to work on XXX problem, and I have this algorithm, and this is the logic that I want to do in my algorithm. I don't know how to code that yet. So can you help me figure out how I would make that happen in code? That's a very common problem. I know how I would solve the problem. I just don't understand how to do that in code. So this shows me you understand the problem, and this shows me you have an approach to the solution. And we can talk about, if you're just simply saying, oh, well, you want to do this, that should be a if statement, a loop, a for statement, a tree, a map, whatever data structure you should be using. Or it could say, yeah, your plan, it's not at a coding level yet. It's too high level. So let's talk about how we refine your plan to get it to coding level. Or your plan's well intended, but it's not going to work. We can talk about it at that point, and we can deal with you where you have your question. You might perfectly well understand the code, but your plan might be untenable. And sometimes it's not even, you don't even understand that much about it. I don't even know where to get started. Well, I want to work on some problem, XXX. I'm not sure where to get started. I, I read the problem statement. I think it wants me to do however you explain it yourself. Just rephrase it, and I have no idea about about how to do that. That's much better than I don't even know where to get started. Because again, you're given a sense of what you understand or don't understand about the problem. Instead of me just simply rephrasing the problem in another way and hoping you understand it, when you rephrase the problem back to me, it takes time and you feel uncomfortable and you don't want to ask a dumb question. Well, you're not. What you're actually doing is you're giving me feedback. Maybe I did write a really bad problem description. Or simply, maybe you just need to understand the terms better. Or maybe you have some gap in your knowledge. I mean, some of the problems have nothing to do with programming language. Maybe it's you don't understand geometry or banking or games or whatever's going on right there. And that's fine too. You have many problems to choose from. Maybe you picked one that you don't understand well. And let's talk about that problem. Let's not feel bad about code because you don't know about whatever the problem's trying to solve. So that is a few examples. Now, the only way to do it is practice it. The worst question is the unasked question. If you don't ask for a question, I can't answer it, and nobody else can answer it. And so understand collaboration, not knowing, asking for help is a key part of being a great professional in any field, in any sport. That's why even professional athletes, very, very highly paid, they have coaches. They need feedback. They need to ask questions if they're going to get better. And when you're high enough paid, if you're good enough, somebody's going to be there to give you feedback whether you want it or not. But when you're new, starting out, it's important to seek that feedback. It's important to ask that feedback to really ensure you get the help you need to become a great professional. So I hope this helps. I hope you practice seeking feedback and asking better questions. And I hope some of them are coming to me soon because I love helping on coding questions, and it really helps me be better at teaching you to begin with. So have them keep coming, and I'll talk to you soon.